In the last lesson, we drawn the handbrake system here, and when we were doing that, what I noticed was the width of the wagon was significantly narrower than the crane, and I thought I better check what the spacing is going to be like on the underframe, specifically looking to get the axles in here. Again, we might have to make that compromise to make it wider so that we can fit the axles in. So let's have a look underneath the wagon and see what we can do to change things. Okay, so if we have a look underneath, let's have a look under the main body of the crane here, and we look at the distance between frames. So we're using the inspect tool, select the line on both sides, and that's telling us we've got 13.2 millimeters across the width of the wagon, across width of the chassis. So if we have a look at the runner, first of all we're going to have to mirror over the W-line. So select the jib runner on the radio button here, and then we'll come down, find the bodies, and then we'll mirror those. Change the bodies, so using mirror tool, that's that body and that body. So we're selecting bodies 6 and 9 I'm selecting, and I'm going to use the mirror plane, which we've already got a midpoint plane. Just find that one. Yeah, that one there. So plane 2 is our mid plane. We're just using it as a new body at the moment, so it's creating 2 more W-lines. Okay, now if we inspect the distance between these two, so that inner surface line, we're at 10.25. So we do need to increase that by 3 millimeters. So what we might find now is, as we do this, we might find that it starts to create errors or misshapes. We might have to kind of change. So if we'll try it, see what happens, and then work from there onwards. Okay, so if we go back before the mirror point for the main body, I'm just scrolling through here looking for the correct mirror plane. That one there, I think. So if I roll back to here, yeah, that's correct. Okay, so hopefully, fingers crossed, this is just going to mirror quite simply for us. So if we turn that mirror plane off for the moment, so we're going to look to increase, hopefully if we just select all the surfaces here, like that, and we do extrude. We said we needed 3 millimeters, so we're going to extrude this by 1.5 millimeters. Click on OK, and then start to skip forwards to the end. We'll see if it's created any errors. Doesn't look like it. And the reason it probably hasn't is because we were using the mid plane here. Check underneath. Everything looks like it's lined up here and here. That's good. So if we inspect this now, hopefully we should have 13.2. No, it's still 10.5. So let's have a look what's not worked. That one there. Let's have a look. We will history mark it here. I'll edit the feature here, and it probably just means, yeah, the missing plane here. So if we select this missing plane on the inside here, okay. Again, we may have to check, see what errors, if any, we get. How does it look at the top? Okay, so it doesn't look like there's any errors that are standing out underneath. Okay, so we've got the mirror plane on the so that midpoint plane hasn't moved for some reason. It's odd because we created it as a midpoint. That is odd because everything else is mirrored across. Okay, that hasn't come all the way across, so we'll have to go back and change that. That one. Okay, so let's create a mid-plane. Because for some reason it doesn't seem like we've got that as a mid-plane. Okay, so mid-plane between that surface, that surface. 15, good. We might need to come back there. Not sure what happened there. So all I did was move the mid-plane, so it's deleted it for some reason. Or hidden it. Let's undo that. We delete the mirror of the bogies, and then we'll redo that. Select the WINs we want to do. So select that one, and on the mid plane, which was 15. Okay, see how the handbrake is not mirrored over properly, so we may need to look at doing that as well. So realistically, if we moved everything over 3mm, we should have to just move this over 3mm and it be in the same place as it should be. Yes, it looks like that is. And we can inspect these just to make sure 13.25 is good. Okay, so you see how we've had to make a compromise there, just so that we can get the axle in there. That has made it look really, really wide on the buffers here. So we may have to do something with the buffers to move them inbound slightly. Yeah, it's all about compromise really. Right. Okay, so if we compare the buffers to the photo here, and then compare it to what we've got, we could definitely move ours inbound and it still match up with the photo, okay? So I think I'm going to do that and look at changing the, switch off the WINs there. We change the buffer, so we're going to have to come back through the history here. Roll the history back here. Buffers are still there. So probably going to have to come back in further. Here on history. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to keep rolling the history back until I get to the point where the buffers are there. I think it's going to be somewhere down here. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to keep rolling the history back until I get to the point where the buffers are there. I think it's going to be somewhere down here. So Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this all inbound slightly. So I'll come back to the sketch, which is down here by these two fillets. I'm going to move this inbound. I'm going to go 0.75 millimeters. Click on OK. Okay, and as you can see now, this wasn't fully defined properly. So we're going to have to edit the sketch on this. There you go, you can see it's not there. So if we find a midpoint line, we can draw on there. Line down a midpoint. Like that. Just turn that into a construction line. And then we can drag this across to it, snap it onto it. And then we're going to want another midpoint line going across there. That's already snapped in. That's fine. So now if we click on OK, yeah, that's moved the buffer inbound. Hopefully if we skip to the end now, and then if we bring the crane chassis in, hopefully the buffers will line up a little bit better. Yes, they're offset because the whole wagon's offset, but you can see that it is definitely lined up better. Slightly more gap on this side. But if you look at the photo, you can see that there's a definite width difference left and right on the buffers here. Some of the photos I've seen show it up a little bit better. So you can see it here again, it's offset slightly. And it's going to be, we're looking at what, maybe 1/4 millimeter difference. You're not going to notice that really. Okay, so I'm much happier with that. I think now that we've checked that, we've got the W irons here with enough room. To get the axle in. One thing we might want to look at is potentially looking at these two drop downs here, because they're definitely closer in the middle. So I might go back and change these slightly. So if we look at the cradle, turn everything else off but the cradle. This bit here. Okay, I'm going to change that to 0.25 there, which has brought that in slightly more. Okay, right, I'm feeling good about where we're at to the moment. That's the changes I would suggest making to the jib runner here, just to get the axle in. I know there is some axles that you can get that are shorter, but you're still going to need to have the space in for the track gauge. So the biggest difference on those shorter axles is how much the axle, the length of the pinpoint, rather than the space in the wheel, obviously. So you're going to need to have that. I've just gone and measured some Farish wagons as well, and now our distance across the wagon actually matches those closer. Before we had it quite narrow compared to some of the Farish wagons, so it's not going to stand out. It's not going to be looking like it's massively wide or anything. It's going to be there or thereabouts with the distance. So that would be the changes I'd make. If you've got any comments on that, please leave them below. Any suggestions that you'd like to make, obviously, please leave those comments below. Thanks for watching today's episode.